Hi everybody, welcome back. This is Adam Schneider and you're listening to the Sales on Demand Show. This is episode 126 and it's the very first episode of the year 2022. Yeah, I know, I probably could have had a few more episodes out. No excuse for that, but really feel like doing one now, so I'm putting out an episode. I've had a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, and let's get into it. So today, the sort of working title of this episode is, So, you want to be a millionaire? Here's how to do it. This is something that's kind of been floating around in my head for the last little bit. Not in a bad way, just thinking about the future, thinking about how I want my life to look, and how what I'm doing right now can lead into that. So I wanted to talk about some general like wealth building concepts, and I hope these will appeal to people who listen to this show. They're not specifically focused on print on demand, because print on demand is just a part of a larger strategy that I have to build a life that I can look back and say that it was well spent. I contributed to the world around me. I helped people who were in need. I did good things with my time and with my money. I want to be able to look back on my life and say, yeah, I did the best I could. So, we'll talk about how to structure your life in a way that you can do that. It's been, so far, the first 15 days of the year have been pretty good. January always feels like a very long and kind of annoying month. The cold snap kind of snapped. But it's still, even when it gets warm here, it's always windy. So it does kind of play havoc with my head a little bit. The barometric pressure change kind of just, gives me headaches. But, at least it's warm. It's not minus 30 anymore. And there's some cool things that I would like to tell you about. The number one thing that I am excited to say is that I am fully out of debt. Fully, completely out of debt. I started with $80,000 in consumer debt. We sold our old farm way back when. It just feels like a million years ago now, but it was less than 4 years ago that we sold and moved into town. It will be 4 years in July that we've been off the farm. And I had $80,000 in consumer debt. And I carried that with me. I couldn't pay it off with the, paying off, like selling the farm. I was able to pay off the mortgage and a little tiny bit of the debt, but I was kind of carrying this last bit. And finally, it's gone. I made the last payment. I asked them, how much is it? $7,400. I was like, all right, cool. Here's a bank payment online, and now my balance on the debt is zero, nothing, and it feels good. Although it just doesn't feel much different than it did because, I'd already put my mind, like the debt out of my mind in a sense. I knew it was going to be paid off, so I was kind of already like living as though it were already paid off. But now it really is paid off. So, had some shenanigans with cars. For the longest time, I've been driving one of the most raggedy Corollas, a Toyota Corolla, that I think I've ever owned. Now, I'm no stranger to driving beaters. I don't care about how nice a car looks. I just want it to get me from point A to point B. But this car that I had was really just literally crumbling. My wife and my kids would always make fun of me about it. Not that I really care about that, but, they would joke that they could hear me coming from, 2 blocks away, and it wasn't even really a joke. It was actually just the truth. You could hear this car running from 2 blocks away because it had a nice exhaust leak. There was pieces of the outside that had just come off. The dash was falling apart. The window seal was broken. It was just in rough shape. But I thought, well, it'll get me till I, decide to buy a new vehicle. So I finally decided one night, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna do it. I think I'm gonna replace the vehicle. The next day I was going to go and pick up the new vehicle. I'd already kind of picked one out online, and I was gonna drive this car to go get it, and it wouldn't start. And it turns out that it was just the battery was kind of run down, but I was like, all right, well, this is a sign that I need a new vehicle. Although I bought a vehicle and I'm not super happy with it, because it turns out that the model that I bought, I got a Hyundai Santa Fe, and it's got this weird glitch where it keeps stalling. So, not super excited about that, but we'll see how things go. I may sell it and buy something else. I don't know yet, but I just really hate dealing with cars sometimes because, you get one model that's really good, but then another model is just terrible. It's got these weird problems, and it's kind of just, you got to find one that's really good and stick with that brand. And I kind of wish I just had another Corolla because they're so reliable. But they're very expensive to buy used, so yeah. Anyway, I am also looking forward again to the outdoor running season because I'm just tired of snow. I've been dreaming about living somewhere where it doesn't snow all the time, but I don't know about that. We'll see how things go. We're stuck here for now. We're buying the house that we're living in, so got to deal with where you are at any given moment before you think about the future. So let's get into this. Do you want to be a millionaire? And what does that look like? So, some of you may have heard of a book called The Millionaire Next Door. And you may have also heard about another book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So my dad gave me these two books when I was young. They've been around for a long time. The Millionaire Next Door, I believe it's sitting on my shelf, on my bookshelf behind me. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I believe, is also sitting on the shelf behind me. I've read both of them. I think I've read them multiple times. The Millionaire Next Door is actually a really fascinating book. And I'm going to give you some information about millionaires from the book. Nothing really specific because I don't want to get, into some kind of book review thing. But a millionaire, what is a millionaire? Like, is it real wealth, or is that just, what does it look like these days? Obviously, what constitutes $1 million is slowly being eroded by our good friend and, generous neighbor, the Federal Reserve, that constantly prints money and makes the value of every single dollar in your bank account, in your wallet, worth less and less every minute of every day. The value of that money is degrading. So a millionaire isn't somebody who has $1 million in cash. One thing I was really surprised to find out is that 5% of Canadians are technically millionaires. Now, that's not really the kind of millionaire that I want to be, and we'll talk about what the 5% of Canadians that are millionaires. They're basically house millionaires. But that's not really a millionaire. That's just somebody that has a really overpriced house. So what does an actual millionaire look like? Well, the average millionaire drives a used car, lives in a modest house, has a very ordinary lifestyle, but also has a job or career that earns them an above average income. So the above average income is the part that kind of matters, right? These are usually people with skills that are in demand, and they make money that puts them above the average. It is more challenging to be it is possible to be a millionaire if you are making an average wage. It's just going to take you longer to do it. If you want to be a millionaire fast, well, there is a pathway to do that. And is being a millionaire really worth it? Is that really something that you want to be? And I'm going to talk about kind of what I envision out of my life, because being a millionaire is kind of part of that, but it's not the full story. And really just calling it a millionaire, it doesn't really describe how you live. So, of course, the average millionaire, you wouldn't know them to see them. And that there's a high likelihood that several people who are, technically millionaires. Their net worth is over $1 million. Now, some people that who act like a millionaire probably aren't millionaires, right? So there are people who spend and they have the lifestyle of a, quote, millionaire, but they actually don't have any net wealth whatsoever. Now, these people are actually going to end up being the poorest of all of us. And you do not want to be one of these fake millionaires. You don't want to act like you're a millionaire. You want to actually be a millionaire. Now, a real person who has a lot of wealth is somebody who, if they lost their job or if just something happened to them, they would not be in any serious financial difficulty because they have, some cash coming in, they have investments, they have a lifestyle that is low cost already, and they could survive for a year or 2 years with almost no work. So that's really what the value of being a millionaire is like, is that if something happens, you can't work or you got no income coming in, it's not a crisis for you. And this is the kind of lifestyle that I'd actually like to have, where there's resilience built into it. I don't care about having cool stuff. I really don't. If you saw my house, I mean, it's not fancy. It's a very ordinary looking house. But I plan we're going to buy it, and we're going to own it. And I'm going to take care of it, fix it up, keep it in good condition. It's got a nice big backyard, and I'm going to plant a big garden back there. So what I want to build more than a bunch of things that I own is a resilient lifestyle that if something happened, that it's not going to send us into the street. So let's talk about, a profession that is most likely to become a millionaire and have a high net worth. So, of course, entrepreneurs are going to be the most likely to be millionaires because they own businesses, and those businesses are worth money. They're also really good at what's called time preference decisions. So they are able to put off their purchases. Like, they're able to say, live a modest lifestyle now to trade off for a better lifestyle later. Those are the people who are most likely to become millionaires. There's also people who are highly skilled trades or have, really in-demand professions, engineers, things like that, people who work in oil or are just really highly skilled, people in technology. Tech millionaires are a big thing too. Like, tech companies are paying a lot of money for people who have skills in, IT, like information technology, who are able to code, who are able to create and develop apps and stuff like that. Although, I mean, that's not really my thing. I don't really want to do that kind of stuff. It has never interested me to do any coding or anything like that. So that's totally out of my wheelhouse. But those are professions that are the most likely to be millionaires. Now, the least likely profession to be millionaires are people like doctors. Doctors are notorious for being like net worth broke. Net worth broke. Like, doctors are, if you want a profession that's going to be wealthy, you don't want to be a doctor. First of all, they work a ton. It's a hard job. Like, it's actually a really hard job to be a doctor. Much more like actual time on the job than I would care to spend myself. Also, they are usually highly indebted. Their education costs a ton of money. It costs a ton of money, and it takes a long time to get. Right? You got to study. You got to be, crazy smart, and you got to go about $100,000 in debt to get into medical professions. Like even nurses are pretty in debt too. And then of course there's teachers and there's other like government professionals, and they're usually the ones less likely to have a high net worth. Cops are usually highly in debt. Ironically, firefighters are not so likely to be in debt. That's usually because firefighters are usually also entrepreneurs, which is kind of funny. It's almost like being a firefighter is like a part-time job, and your real job is whatever business you run on the side on your days off. So, government people are just not as likely to be millionaires, and doctors and highly paid professionals, but people who had to go to school for a long time, also less likely to be millionaires because they want the lifestyle that comes with their high pay, right? So, and lawyers too, and not very likely to be millionaires. Although lawyers that, tend to be a little bit smarter about money than doctors are. Doctors are terrible with money. Doctors are out there buying airplanes and Hummers and just expensive cars, living in big houses, stuff like that. That's just not the way to be a millionaire. So this is kind of how I envision my life. I envision myself having a network of businesses and investments that I manage while I spend my time writing, traveling, learning, and producing content. So a lot of that is basically what I'm doing right now. Just a little bit more of the fun stuff. And I don't even mean the fun stuff like... I love traveling. I want to do more traveling. You can't spend all of your time traveling, though. So I just want to do a little bit more traveling and take my kids traveling. But I also want to spend some time writing. I have been wanting to be a writer for a very long time, but it doesn't pay the bills, right? It takes actually a lot of money and time to build a following as a writer. So I'm probably going to have to be wealthy first and then start writing. So I know it's ironic, right? It's like you think that writing is a career that will make you wealthy. Actually, it's not. It's not a career that will make you wealthy. But I just love it. I love stories. I want to write some stories. It's something I've always wanted to do. But, it's not the only thing I want to do. I also want to learn and keep producing this kind of content right here. I want to keep, and I'd like to start making videos and just doing more of this kind of thing, more podcasting, more episodes. It is hard, though, because I've got a pretty busy schedule, so I really need to find a way to reduce the other things in my schedule. But in the meantime, I might as well build the money while I can. So there's kind of two ways to be a millionaire. The first one is to have a net worth of $1 million. But big deal, right? Like I said, 5% of Canadians technically are millionaires. Like on paper, they could go to the bank and they could say, hey, I'm a millionaire. But big deal, they have a house that's worth like $800,000. And maybe they have just a 401k, or in Canada we call it an RSP that's maybe worth $250,000. So their net worth is almost entirely tied up in their home. That's not good, right? If you have an $800,000 house and maybe it's paid off, maybe it's mostly paid off, it's staying there is bad for you. It's good to have, an overpriced house if you're going to sell it and downgrade. I'm going to talk about that in a future episode, right? Where you live makes a huge difference in your quality of life. I'm a firm believer that living in a city, a big city, an expensive city, is crazy. You would be crazy to stay in cities. I've been living in a small town for a long time. I love it. It's my future. I'm never going to live in anything bigger than probably 2,000-3,000 people. It's a perfect size. Anyway, get to that in a future episode. But, having cash or wealth is pointless if you can't put that wealth to work for you. A house is not an asset in the sense that it produces money for you. unless you rent it out, right? But you can't rent it out if you're living in it. So having a house that's worth a lot of money, completely pointless, because you can't put that money to work for you, and having cash is pointless if you don't put the money to work for you. Now, having, some kind of retirement investment, mutual funds or something like that, something tied up in the stock market, that could work if you're really aggressive with that money, but it still isn't going to produce as much, ongoing wealth for you. And in some cases, it might not even keep up with the inflation rate, which is now 7%. Thanks, Joe Biden, for that. But also thanks, Trump, because he did sign a couple of spending bills that were extremely high. So you got to give credit where credit is due, and you got to give blame where blame is due. Trump did not make any effort to reduce the spending of the federal government. It almost seems like that's what presidents do. Politicians, their whole job is to spend your money, right? So it doesn't matter who's the president, they're all going to spend more money than the last one. So anyway, where was I? I can't remember where I was going with that. But yeah, so having cash or wealth is pointless, if you can't put it to work for you. But on the other hand, if you invest in, I was talking about retirement funds. So if you invest in, businesses and start building more income streams, that's going to pay off in the long run, right? I would almost rather have a regular, almost passive income, but a network of businesses that generate income than I would have some kind of expensive investment, right? Because I can earn money and keep building the businesses, whereas an investment that earns 5% per year, that's really not going to produce much over the long run. It's barely going to keep pace with inflation. So another way to be earning, a lot of money is to have a highly marketable skill. This is a really useful way to build up your sort of net worth. Now, this is intangible net worth, right? So having a highly marketable skill is useful, but you can't put a price tag on it. So, you need to build your own personal skills just as much as you build your own investment portfolio. And this is something that's really important. So spending money on training yourself, how to build, businesses or do marketing, like making money online with a print-on-demand business. That's very, very useful. And it just so happens that I teach that. Weird how I kind of tied that in there. See what I did? So if you guys want to know more about the course that I teach called Print on Demand A to Z, you can go to salesondemandshow.com/start. Get started with my free videos. Just get to know what it is that I do in a broad sense. They're really fairly short videos. It just teaches you, this is how you build up a print-on-demand business in a really broad sense. I do teach it in depth in my training course, and you'll get a link to that when you sign up at salesondemandshow.com/start. So, to kind of conclude, here are some things that you need to think about in your own life, right? First of all, how am I spending my time? Now, I have talked about this a lot. My own time is at a premium these days. Like, I just don't have a lot of time to spare for anything. But I've started, being very vigorous with my time management. Much, much, much more vigorous and sort of, on the ball than I ever used to be. So, my son and I, we've decided that we want to go skating a lot this winter because it's a lot of fun. And I thought, you know what? I kind of want to learn how to skate really good. I'm never going to be, a star hockey player or what do you call those? Figure skaters, yeah. But I kind of want to be able to skate effortlessly. I want to go on the ice and just have somebody look at me and say, oh, that guy knows how to skate. Because it's a lot of fun. It's fun to skate. And we have a skating rink that's basically 3 minutes away. So I've built it into my schedule. And every week, twice a week in the winter, I'm like, we're going skating. And so we do. That's something that I've built into my time. But there's some things that I'm spending my time doing that are really not paying off that well. And I've had to really look at this and say, what am I doing here? What am I doing with this? And one of those, specifically I'm talking about the military, the armed forces. I got back into the armed forces and the Army Reserve because it just, I wanted to kind of keep myself sharp. I wanted to have some fun. And I think I've gotten everything out of it that I'm going to. The problem with the military is that they want a lot of time. They want 6 weeks of my time. They want 8 weeks of my time to be fully trained. I just don't have that much time available to give. And even if I did, what do I get out of it? Right? So at the end of that training, what do I have? I know how to, drive an armored vehicle. I don't know. That doesn't sound like something that's going to build in my future, in a sense. Now, I don't know. It's fun. I've built some friendships there. But I really do think that just I've gotten everything out of it that I can. It's probably time to move on to something else. So the other thing that I was thinking about is getting a pilot's license. And that is something that would contribute to future skills. And that's an important thing. Like, are you building future skills that are going to pay dividends for you down the road? Now, in some cases, like military training can teach you some things. Discipline, the ability to, be under tremendous amounts of stress and stay calm, stay focused, the ability to do without sleep for long periods of time. Those are actually useful skills to have. And I've pretty much gotten those skills out of the military. I now know what my personal limit is in terms of, physical suffering, call it. I know that I'm capable of working hard. I could build a trench in an hour and a half if I need to. I don't need to do any more of that. What I need to do now is build technical skills and other kinds of skills that are going to contribute to my future. So rather than spend my summer doing military training, I think I'm going to spend my summer building a big garden. That's actually a skill that I need to develop more. Things like, if I get a pilot's license, then I have access to transportation options that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise, right? So I'll be able to travel and be able to do it faster and more efficiently. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see about that. But, I'm just thinking about the future and building skills that actually matter rather than just doing things for the sake of doing things. So I've had to really look at my time and just what I'm doing to see where am I really building value and where am I just spinning my tires. Now, the second thing is, am I building and strengthening relationships with people around me? And I've thought about this with my neighbors too. Like, I've realized that I really don't have strong relationships with all of my neighbors. I know them, I've seen them, they're really good people. But I think this year I'm going to start sort of cultivating more relationships with my neighbors, the people around me, and of course I want to spend more time with my family, especially my kids, because they're not going to be around forever. They're not going to be at home forever. Obviously, they're going to be somewhere. But you only get a certain amount of time where they're like with you all the time. And honestly, I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss having my kids at home all the time. I love having my family nearby. And it's probably the only reason I'm still living in Alberta is my family, is all here. So, build and cultivate those relationships, because in the end, that's what makes life more rich. It makes life more worthwhile, right? So if you go to church, those relationships with people in your church, those are important. Your family, your extended family too. Don't discount the value of having a mother-in-law or a sister-in-law. Cultivate relationships with those people. If you just ignore them, it's almost like they don't exist to you. But these are people in your circle. And in the end, nobody's ever going to say, people in their deathbed don't say that I wish I hadn't spent so much time with my mother-in-law. Everybody always says, I wish I'd spent more time cultivating relationships with my family. It's the number one regret that people have. All right? Now, the last thing here, of course, is, am I staying healthy? Am I keeping myself healthy? Am I cultivating healthy habits? Is my lifestyle going to lead me to, weight gain and sedentary, sitting on my butt all day long? Or have I built habits that are going to maintain at least a moderate degree of health as you get older? Like, I'm 40 years old now. I'm not a young guy. When young guys line up and they talk about going and running, I'm not keeping up with them. I'm not keeping up with 20-year-olds. It's just not happening. But I can stay ahead of where I was yesterday. I can try and maintain a healthy weight. I can try and eat good, healthy, raw food, or, vegetables, clean food, clean meat, avoid sugar, and just basically, not spend so much time on the computer and exercise, just doing everything I can to stay healthy. It's a battle. Once you reach like age 30, you actually have to start fighting for health. You gotta actually get that sword out and start fighting off the demons, the orcs, because it starts to degrade. And it might degrade slow at age 30, but by the time you hit age 40, 45, 50, your health really starts to take, things can take a toll on you much faster than they would when you were 20 or 25. So, I gotta struggle, I gotta spend hours of my week to be as healthy as a 20-year-old is spending no time at all. But you know what? I want to maintain that health. I want to be able to enjoy my life and not be in pain or not be able to move around or something like that. Because, that would make my quality of life worthless. Like, what's the point of having a bunch of money if you can't use it? If you're just stuck in a body that's just flabby and weak. And I'm sorry to put it like this, but that's not what I want to be, right? I want to be fit, strong as I can be at whatever age I'm at, and I want to live a long and healthy life. That's very important to me. And I think I spend as much time thinking about that as I do about making money, maybe even a little bit more. So, here's the homework that I have for you guys. Start making a list of everything that you're doing now. Make a list of literally everything that you do. When you wake up in the morning, are you making that cup of coffee first? What are you doing? What are you eating? What are you spending money on? Who are you spending time with? What shows are you watching? Start looking at your life and take every little element and decide, is this helping or is this hurting my future? Now, I'm not telling you have to be like constantly working or doing something. In fact, that's bad for you, right? You do need downtime. But even your downtime could be something more beneficial, right? You need balance in everything. And most people don't have that. So that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Of course, you can find this show online, salesondemandshow.com. I try to keep the site updated as much as possible. I'm often a little bit behind on putting these episodes on the website, so forgive me for that. But have another episode for you guys every week. Going to do the best I can to put out weekly episodes because this is good. I enjoy creating content, and I think this is good content. So hopefully you guys find some value out of it as well. And we'll see you next week. Cheers.